Pro-life of Reddit, what should we do with the unwanted children that would otherwise be aborted? So I feel like I've read through hundreds of comments and none are from pro-lifers answering the question. I have a modest proposal.
I'm not pro-life, but my brother who is staunchly pro-life says that every child deserves free healthcare, school, food, and housing. Literally want for nothing until they are adults, and then hopefully with the skills/knowledge that's been provided, begin taking care of themselves. I happen to agree, only wish that it extended beyond just kids, but baby steps I guess.
Make them work in the mines. Fix the entire shit system when it comes to kids. Adoption, foster care, everything needs to be addressed.
If the mother wanted an abortion and their state laws prevented it from happening, then the child should be supported by that state's government until 18.
I feel like pro-life and pro-choice are operating at completely different wavelengths. What pro-choicers don't seem to fully grasp is that pro-lifers believe abortion is straight up murder, like no different than taking a newborn and killing it. They do not see a difference. That is how they see the entire situation, regardless of whether whoever reads this comment believes the same thing. So looking at it from that frame of mind, the question can be rephrased as, pro-life of Reddit. Why can't we literally murder humans we cannot care for or will not be loved because they are unwanted? Quote, that gotcha I hear on Reddit all the time of, well, they're pro-life until they're born SMH. Isn't really a gotcha using that same reference point. These people think they're stopping infanticide, regardless of the aftermath. That's like stopping a depressed person from committing suicide but not doing anything to fix the underlying issue in that depressed person's life. I believe a strong social safety net, access to contraceptives, and robust sex education is vital. I think refusing to accept these while also touting anti-abortion laws is a bit self-defeating. I also think that pro-life loud crowd and pro-choice loud crowd are arguing with one another, but they're not even in the same metaphorical building. Just screaming into the void with no one to listen. You won't be able to convince someone who thinks abortion is literal murder to change their stance. But you can argue about some of the secondary points of ensuring children get the care they need. Probably won't be successful, but you'll be significantly more successful than arguing pro-choice to a pro-lifer.
And would you agree to the tax increases necessary to make that happen? This topic is my most frequent counterpoint to people who believe capitalism can cure all ills. It's great for scaling industry and solving inefficiencies, but there will never be any money in orphans. Barring some modest proposal type stuff.
Significant subsidies for daycare would be a good start. Private, quality daycare costs thousands per month. Most couples cannot afford this and should receive vouchers so they can. Just because people are poor or middle class doesn't mean they should put their kids in high-risk, unlicensed daycare. I don't think you'll actually find a pro-lifer on our AskReddit, or one that won't be downvoted into oblivion for giving an honest answer. But you could always go the North Korean government route and sell them into slavery to the Chinese. Make it easier and cheaper for loving families to adopt. They should become desperate parents that are easily exploited in the workforce as cheap, dispensable labor that invariably raise the next generation of easily exploited labor that will follow right along in their parents' footsteps since they were left with no time to raise them properly. That is the actual plan. The quiet part said out loud.
Give it to the pro-lifers to adopt.
We should invest in comprehensive sex education, accessible contraception, and support systems for expectant parents to reduce unwanted pregnancies while fostering a society that values and cares for every child. Regardless of any of this, are there really millions of people that don't understand that being pregnant is incredibly dangerous to your health? I was a perfectly healthy police officer working full-time and fully supporting myself as a homeowner. I became pregnant at 29 years old, and 7 months later the pregnancy had woken up a genetic condition that I did not know I had, leaving me permanently disabled and unable to ever work again. My house was foreclosed on. I had to leave my career despite having gotten 2 degrees, and still owing almost $50,000 in student loans. And my permanent forever income is $1,100 a month before taxes for the rest of my life. I'd like to know how anyone can justify forcing pregnancy on someone. My pregnancy was the result of a violent and unconsensual sexual assault. This wasn't a, just be pregnant for 9 months and then give the baby to someone and go back to your regular life. That was my plan at the time. I had been on birth control. I was single and had not been having sex with anyone, but I decided to give the baby up for adoption because I didn't want to have an abortion. That choice left me permanently disabled. I'm pretty sure that there's a huge amount of people who just think pregnancy is 9 months of your life, and then if you don't have a baby to take care of, you can just go back to life like it never happened. Also, being pregnant, for a vast many people, means missing significant amounts of work because of severe morning sickness and extreme fatigue. Do you really want a restaurant server serving you food while they carry around a small garbage can and vomit into it repeatedly in between handing you your plates? Pregnancy involves a new wardrobe, even if you get the absolute bare minimum number of maternity clothing items. The seasons will change while you are pregnant, so you are going to need things to wear when it is both hot and cold in most climates. And if you're trying to work at a job where you have some sort of dress code like business casual, ... how are you supposed to afford to buy all that new clothing? Even if you decide that you're going to give the baby up for adoption at the end of the pregnancy, ideally, that woman needs to go to regular appointments, which will mean missing work. And even if they have absolutely no symptoms, which is extremely uncommon, they need at minimum 6 weeks to recover from labor or severe abdominal surgery. And I would just like to know who these pro-life people think is going to foot the bill for all of that. And then if the pregnancy does leave you completely and utterly disabled for the rest of your life, then what? I did what you pro-life people think is the right thing. I was raped, didn't want kids, remained pregnant. And now I've lost my home. Ruined my credit. I live with severe 24/7 chronic pain. And I can never work again. So, where are all these prolifers who were supposed to be supporting me since I did the right thing? The baby is alive because of my choice that you urged me to choose. Yet, no one cares that the pregnancy completely destroyed my life. Because that doesn't matter. I think it's important to address why a mother may have wanted to abort in the first place and, if possible, offer solutions to those problems. For example, a majority of people are waiting, not wanting children simply because they can't afford it. To fix this issue, we'd need to first address other major issues in this country, such as corporate greed. Giving more power to unions and people in general when it comes to work would help improve people's financial situations. Housing can fall into this as well, as many don't want to start a family until they have a house to raise those kids. Make housing affordable for Americans. People being able to afford to give their children the lives they deserve would help to drive down the number of women who wanted those abortions to begin with. Supporting better birth control measures and having some that can be used by men would prevent pregnancies in the first place. In tandem with this point is better sex education, as this also helps reduce unwanted pregnancy. Finally, improving the adoption process and ensuring children receive all the support they need in the system is integral. Many unwanted pregnancies result in children being put into orphanages where their lives and opportunities immediately plummet. Being an orphan means they have zero financial support or a safety net going into adulthood. These children need support well into adulthood, such as full tuition paid for to go into college. Colleges should also be incentivized to allow these children, now adults, I guess, to be accepted into college, so they have a better chance at success in life. If not college, then some form of higher education such as trades. Regardless how you spin it, these people are the most vulnerable of our community. With all of this, I think it answers what we should do with these unwanted children. Make them wanted by improving the lives of the parents and improve the system for unwanted children. But allowing abortion again would honestly be a simpler solution. Obviously, we should cut all state and federal funding for welfare programs that support low-income families and early childhood development. Let's also shoot down ideas like free school lunches, and make sure to reduce the pool of potential adopters by using religion as a criteria. The same people who vote pro-life tend to support these things, or vote for the politicians who support these things. So clearly they don't care about the kids once they're born. They're not pro-life. They're pro-birth. Mars Colony. Speaking as a previous pro-lifer growing up, I believe pro-life people have a rose-tinted view on social safety nets and adoption. So just fund those more. The baby will go to a good orphanage, get adopted by a good family, work hard and pull themselves up by the bootstraps, go to college on scholarship, get a good job, and potentially become the next Einstein. So unfortunately that's the exception and not the norm, as most women forced to go on with giving birth will usually keep the child, which will keep them both poor, or give it up to adoption or foster care, which will most likely also cause a hard life for the child, especially factoring in race. That is an oversimplified question that assumes that all abortions are elective. Pregnancy, despite what movies, TV, and evangelical Christians would have you believe, is not a beautiful, natural thing for all women. Complications are extremely common, and many can be life-threatening for the mother. There is no one-size-fits-all in this, which is why total abortion bans are sheer evil. Most states won't even feed kids breakfast at school. No one's going to take care if these children not a single pro-lifers. It's a joke. Too many of y'all think pregnancy is safe. The person that is pregnant needs to be considered before the fetus and adoption. And too many of y'all think irresponsible people should be trusted to become responsible. I can't seem to find one pro-life person on this post at all. Infant Boxing League. For everyone who thinks adoption is the answer. Serious question. How do you suggest a pregnant woman who can't afford the child should pay for 9 months of healthcare, nutritious food, and the hopefully uncomplicated birth? Medicaid doesn't cover everyone. It's crazy to see answers that say, take responsibility. Like, okay, that's nice, but what do we do about people who won't, can't? Other situation where the child isn't wanted. What you want is real nice, but the reality is that not everyone will. So what then? Why no abortion for the raped daughter of a pedophile father? Or the person trying to be responsible with birth control, condoms, etc., but those things fail and They won't take the responsibility. What about those trapped in relationships and are forced to become pregnant? What about the addicts who don't give a fuck about anything but their habit? It would be nice if everyone was responsible, but that's not real life at all. There are so many more situations I can't even name. What about those? And is there an answer besides what they are expected to do, because obviously that doesn't always happen. So what then? Most people don't want to adopt unhealthy babies, or kids who aren't babies, or troubled kids, etc. Then what? If people's hands are forced, it can resort to great suffering on the child's part, and just wishing people take responsibility isn't useful at all. Soylent Greens. Pro-lifers regularly tout adoption as the answer to this question with no fucking idea what they're talking about, while also ducking the fact that the systems and infrastructure surrounding adoptable children must be able to protect, support, and educate them even if nobody adopts them. I'm pro-choice, but just wanted to point out that there are about 10,000 adoption applications per year in the US, but about 1M unwanted pregnancies. I remember a similar question like this was asked on Facebook. Someone said, they should send all the orphans, foster kids and unwanted kids to red states. They claim that a life is a life. Until refugees, poor people need help. Quote. What do you consider a pro-lifer? Someone who is against abortion from the moment of fertilization. They represent a single-digit percentage of Americans. Or do you also consider pro-lifer someone who wants to limit abortion to the first trimester? That category represents well over 60% of Americans. If you'd actually like an answer from someone who is pro-life, the unwanted children shouldn't exist. The number of children born from situations in which the parents did not both willingly enter knowing there was a risk of having a kid is negligible. Yes, there are absolutely exceptions. But the child deserved to die due to those exceptions? I don't believe so. There are also situations where a pregnancy must be ended due to medical necessity, but I honestly do not believe these are abortions in the political or religious sense. Sometimes you have to decide who dies. And it sucks. That said, though, I simply cannot consider it in terms of voting, and I avoid the topic at all costs with everyone. Abortion sucks. But people are weak. We were foster parents for a long time. Until our hearts were too broken to keep going. And I saw how a kid could take two people who actually had a chance and absolutely fill their life with resentment and hate and frustration. I've seen kids, wonderful and beautiful and intelligent and capable children, completely destroy their parents simply by their existence. God, it sucks. Someone getting an abortion pisses me off. But listening to people whine about abortions when they would never stoop so low as to take one of those kids in or give them the time of day. Someone who's never in their life helped anyone who wasn't a card-carrying member of their church pisses me off more. 700,000 kids in the foster system right now. I hate abortions, but if you're going to complain about him to me, you damn well better also have those scars on your heart from taking in unwanted kids. You want to whine, but you didn't do the hard thing. You didn't adopt someone. You didn't put your labor into the system to help. Then fuck you. I heard someone saying it this way. Republicans only care about the child until it's born. Pro-lifers, I feel, are the same. Only care until its child is born, then they don't seem to care. You don't care about fetuses. I don't either. No one does. If it isn't able to survive outside of the uterus, then it's not a human being. As adults, they'll work for cheap at the low-paying, dirty, difficult and dangerous jobs that immigrants currently do in our country. I'm serious. The only reason you would want to expanded the ranks of the impoverished underclasses in America is if you see them as a potential pool of cheap, unskilled labor. Just blame their poverty on their parents' promiscuity. Then slash their safety nets, social services and budgets for education. They'll most likely wind up doing low-wage manual labor after high school or locked up in a corporate-run prison. Either way, it'll be a win for the earnings statements. Let them live a life. Hear me out. What if governments actually cared and invested more finances in institutions that need it? What if orphanages, education and adoption systems had high enough budgets that people would willingly become caretakers and teachers, and you could afford to have strict vetting processes to ensure high-quality personnel? To answer your question, I would much rather a baby put in a high-quality orphanage with proper care and facilities, rather than that baby be put to death. My best friend adopted 2 boys. She also had children of her own, and her husband was on the board of the orphanage. We had this discussion one night, and while in the thick of it, I said something without thinking. It just came out. I am against abortions. But how can I judge you for having one if I am not willing to adopt and raise your child? That is the problem. People on high horses, advocating for the life of children, which they should. But very few of them actually get their hands dirty and adopt or foster children. Nor do they contribute to the systems where these kids end up. In my country, the orphanages are full. The children have nowhere to go and end up on the streets, fall pregnant themselves, and the cycle continues. Put your money and actions where your mouth is. Donate to societies that help kids. Foster a child. Help one. Start at the source and do more about sex education and the consequences. Post this question in our Ask Conservatives